I never thought that a quiet Saturday morning in our small apartment could turn into something that would completely flip my life upside down. My name is Ethan, and to most people I'm just your average guy, a bit introverted, slightly nerdy, working from home as a freelance programmer. I live with my younger sister, Lily, in a modest but cozy apartment filled with sunlight that streams through the living room windows. To anyone looking from the outside, we're just ordinary siblings. But behind closed doors, my life had a secret. A side of me that I couldn't exactly share with anyone, not even my closest friends. Ever since I was a teenager, I'd been drawn to femininity. It wasn't just curiosity, it was something deeper, something that made my pulse race whenever I touched soft fabrics, admired the curves of a skirt, or experimented with subtle makeup. It started small, borrowing my sister's nail polish when she wasn't looking, sneaking her hair accessories, or trying on her dresses when I was sure no one was home. The thrill wasn't just in doing something forbidden, it was in feeling different, feeling me. Over the years, I learned to hide it well. No one could suspect, not even Lily. Lily, on the other hand, was blissfully unaware. She's 12, bright, cheerful, endlessly curious, and often the reason our apartment feels alive. She's also obsessed with science experiments, a trait she inherited from our late mother. Our weekends were often filled with small DIY projects, messy baking experiments, and lately, her increasingly complex chemistry kits. She had been begging me to help her with a super-secret potion she was working on for weeks, and while I indulged her enthusiasm, I never imagined how literal her experiments could get. And then there was Isabella, my girlfriend. Sweet, intelligent, and, well, incredibly perceptive. She knows me better than anyone, or at least she thinks she does. But I've kept my cross-dressing hidden from her. I don't even know if I want to tell her, it's complicated. Our relationship is full of trust, laughter, and a fair amount of teasing, but the idea of revealing this side of myself terrified me. I loved her, and I wanted her to accept me for who I was, but I couldn't take the risk yet. Every time I thought about it, I felt a knot in my stomach. It was a morning like any other when Lily bounced into my room, holding a small vial filled with a strange, glowing liquid. "Ethan, you have to help me test this potion," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief and excitement. "It's supposed to. Well, I'm not sure exactly what it does yet, but it's super cool." I raised an eyebrow. "Lily, last time your super cool potion made the cat run around the apartment wearing socks for 3 hours. I'm not sure I'm ready for another round of chaos." She giggled. "No, this one is different. I read it in one of Mom's old notebooks. It says here it can switch things. Like, literally swap objects or even people." My heart skipped. People? Swap? People? I laughed nervously. "That's impossible. Come on, Lily, you're not thinking humans, are you?" Her expression shifted, a mix of excitement and seriousness. "I might be, but I need a volunteer. And, well, you're here first." I froze. My pulse began to race. A strange, electric thrill ran through me. On one hand, my brain screamed that this was insane, dangerous even. On the other, a small, secret part of me, my hidden self, was curiously intrigued. What if this was different? What if it was a chance to explore something I'd been longing for? I don't know, Lily," I stammered. "This sounds risky." "You trust me, right?" she said, tilting her head, her big eyes pleading. "It's just an experiment. I'll make sure nothing goes wrong." There was a pause. And in that pause, my mind started racing, not just with the possibilities of what the potion could do, but with all the things I'd secretly imagined. What if this potion let me explore my other side safely, at least temporarily? A chance to be me without judgment, without fear of being caught? I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Okay," I said finally, trying to sound braver than I felt. "But just for a test. If anything seems off, we stop immediately." Lily's grin stretched from ear to ear. "Deal." She handed me the tiny vial, its liquid shimmering like liquid light. "Just drink a little. Not too much." I stared at it, my hand trembling slightly. The liquid seemed almost alive, dancing in the light. My mind raced, questions, fears, curiosity, all tangled together. And then, before I could second-guess myself further, I took a small sip. At first, nothing happened. I laughed nervously, thinking maybe it was just sugar water or some harmless concoction. But then, a strange warmth spread through my body, starting from my stomach and radiating outward. My vision blurred for a second, then sharpened in a way that felt odd. I felt lighter, smaller, as if my very form was being reshaped. "Ethan." Lily's voice echoed, high-pitched and alarmed. I looked down at my hands and froze. They weren't my hands anymore. They were smaller, delicate, and soft. Panic surged through me, and my mind screamed for control, but my body didn't listen. My chest tightened, my hair felt heavier, my features changed. I staggered backward, gripping the edge of the table. Lily's voice trembled. "Ethan, are you okay? Wait." And then I realized something that made my stomach drop. I looked into the mirror across the room and saw not myself, but Lily, my little sister. My mind spun. I tried to speak, but my voice, high-pitched, unfamiliar, came out in her tone. My heart raced. I had swapped bodies with Lily. Fear, exhilaration, and a strange, guilty excitement collided inside me. I was looking at the world from her perspective, in her body. And more terrifyingly, I was realizing that I had no idea how to reverse it. This wasn't just a prank or an experiment gone wrong. It was a full-blown, uncontrollable transformation. And I was trapped. I didn't know it yet, but this single sip of her potion was about to launch me into a series of events I could never have imagined. A journey where I'd be forced to navigate my secret desires, my fear of discovery, and the overwhelming thrill of living as someone else. Someone I loved in ways I wasn't ready to admit. And Isabella, she had no idea what was coming. The moment the potion took full effect, I felt my mind and body both reel in disbelief. Looking down at my new form, panic battled with an undeniable, strange thrill. I was in Lily's body, small, fragile, and distinctly feminine. My hair fell past my shoulders in soft waves, my fingers were delicate, and my chest. Well, my chest was very much Lily's. The mirror reflected not me, but her, a person I'd known my whole life, yet now seeing through entirely different eyes. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Every instinct screamed to reverse the potion immediately, but I had no idea how. Lily, in my body, looked equally terrified, though she tried to mask it with bravado. "Ethan, you're me," she squeaked, her voice deep and unfamiliar to my ears. "This isn't funny. How do we fix this?" I swallowed hard, trying to form words, but panic clogged my throat. "I barely managed. I don't know. The potion. It's real. We've switched." Her eyes widened, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. "Oh no, no. I read about this. There's gotta be a reversal formula. Maybe in Mom's notebook." As she darted toward her shelf of scientific notes, I realized something far more personal. I could feel her heartbeat, her energy, her youth, and a part of me started noticing things I shouldn't. It wasn't just the physical change, it was the emotional and psychological perspective shift. Every movement felt different, delicate, and heightened. Even standing in her body, the simple act of walking made me hyper-aware of her balance, her smaller frame, and the sway of her hips. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the growing mix of excitement and anxiety. "No. This is wrong. Focus. We have to fix this." But the more I moved around, the more I noticed how different life felt in this body. Picking up her notebook, I felt her slender fingers tracing the edges of the pages. I caught myself marveling at the softness, at how natural it felt to inhabit this form. A blush crept up my cheeks, even though technically it wasn't mine. My pulse raced, a mixture of fear and a new, secret thrill I hadn't anticipated. We spent the next hour rifling through Mom's old chemistry notes, frantically looking for a formula, a clue, anything that could reverse the switch. But nothing seemed to be written clearly enough to act as a guide. Lily, trying to stay calm, scribbled furiously, while I hovered behind her, my mind racing in ways I couldn't contain. "This is insane," I whispered, almost to myself. "What if we're stuck like this?" Lily froze, glancing back at me. "Don't even joke about that. We have to fix it." But as I watched her move in my body, her clumsy attempt to mimic my stride, I couldn't help but notice how different it felt seeing her in me. It was almost intoxicating. Every glance, every subtle motion, triggered a mix of guilt and curiosity I'd never felt before. I shook my head sharply. Focus, Ethan. Focus. It wasn't just about the physical differences. I had to navigate the world in this new body, and the first challenge came immediately: clothes. Lily's pajamas were tiny, far too snug for me to even move comfortably. Trying to adjust them without tripping over my own, or rather her, legs became a comical but nerve-wracking ordeal. "You okay?" Lily asked, frowning as I struggled to pull the sleeves over my arms. Yeah, fine," I muttered, trying to sound casual, though my mind screamed otherwise. I caught my reflection again and realized that every movement, every sway, made me look undeniably feminine. The fabric clung to curves I wasn't used to, accentuating features that made me feel both exposed and thrillingly alive. The internal struggle became a battle. Shame battled with excitement. Fear wrestled with a secret exhilaration. I was supposed to be panicking, but instead, I found myself exploring the subtle pleasures of this body. Adjusting a sleeve, brushing my hair back, or even feeling the softness of the skin beneath my fingertips sparked a thrill I hadn't expected, and one I couldn't voice aloud. Then came the first truly suspenseful moment: Isabella. I hadn't told her I'd be spending the weekend at the apartment with Lily. She thought I was at work. But what if she came by? What if she arrived early and found me like this, her boyfriend transformed into my 12-year-old sister? The thought made my stomach knot and my heart pound in ways I hadn't imagined possible. Lily noticed my sudden paleness. "What is it?" she asked. Isabella could come back early," I admitted. "She can't see me like this." Her eyes went wide. "Oh, right. We need a plan. Fast." We scrambled through our options. Hiding was impossible. Our apartment was small, and there was no place to disappear. I tried to think logically. Maybe I could act like Lily if Isabella showed up, but could I mimic her mannerisms convincingly enough? The thought alone sent a shiver down my spine. While we plotted, another layer of transformation began, not physical but psychological. I started thinking like Lily. I noticed her mannerisms, her little habits I'd never truly appreciated before. The way she twirled her hair absent-mindedly. The way she talked to herself while concentrating. The subtle tilt of her head when she was curious. It was unnerving how quickly I was slipping into her persona, yet impossible to resist. Hours passed in a tense blur. We tried several experimental reversals based on vague notes from Mom's journal, each more bizarre than the last. At one point, I found myself in Lily's wardrobe, reluctantly trying on her skirts and dresses to test whether the potion reacted differently depending on her clothing. The act itself sent a flush of panic mixed with guilty thrill through me. My reflection in the mirror showed a girl, my sister's body, her expression, but with my mind trapped inside. And for the first time, I understood with an almost frightening clarity why I had always been drawn to this kind of femininity. I adjusted a dress, smoothing it over curves that weren't mine by birth, and realized how vulnerable and exposed I felt. Every movement made me hyper-aware, like I was teetering on the edge of discovery. If Isabella walked in now, she'd see me exactly like this. The fear tightened around me, almost suffocating. Lily's voice pulled me back. "Okay, I think I've got it. There's a part of the formula we missed. It says here that certain catalysts can amplify the effect." "Catalysts?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Yes. But it means we have to carefully test it on ourselves." Her eyes flicked nervously to me. "We need to do it together." A chill ran through me. Every instinct screamed against it, but a small, secret part of me, the part that had always yearned for this, was curious. What if this wasn't just a mistake? What if it could let me fully explore this hidden side safely, even temporarily? The suspense in the apartment was suffocating. Every creak of the floorboards, every passing car outside, felt magnified. The potion had already warped our realities, but the possibility of being caught, by Isabella, by anyone, made each second feel like a countdown. My mind raced through contingencies, what-ifs, and panic spirals. And then, as if on cue, there was a knock on the door. My heart froze. We weren't expecting anyone. The knock was sharp, insistent. My pulse thundered in my ears. I froze in place, feeling Lily's body respond instinctively with a startled jump. Who is it?" I whispered, my voice still her high-pitched tone. Lily peeked through the peephole, her eyes widening. "It's Isabella." The room seemed to shrink around me. Panic, guilt, thrill, and fear collided in a storm inside my chest. I realized then that this was no longer just an experiment. It was a game of survival. Every movement, every gesture could expose the truth. I had to navigate this, keep my secret safe, and survive the next wave of suspense. The next hours would test me in ways I had never imagined. Not just my body, but my mind, my desires, and the precarious balance of secrecy and revelation. The potion hadn't just swapped our forms. It had swapped our lives, at least temporarily, and there was no turning back without consequences. The knock at the door echoed in the apartment like a warning bell. My heartbeat quickened as I realized that Isabella could walk in at any second and see me. Not me, Ethan, but Lily. I darted toward the living room, tripping slightly over the small rug, my sister's body far less coordinated than mine. My mind raced, "Think fast. Act like her. Don't panic." Lily, in my body, scrambled to compose herself, but the difference in height and posture made her movements awkward. Watching her adjust my clothes while I fumbled with hers was both surreal and terrifying. We exchanged a glance, a silent understanding forming. We had to survive this encounter without revealing the truth. Then the door opened. Isabella's cheerful voice floated in. "Ethan, I thought I'd surprise you with breakfast." Panic surged. I forced a cheerful tone, high-pitched and awkward, doing my best to mimic Lily's gestures. Hey, ISA." My voice squeaked in a way that made me cringe. Isabella stepped inside, holding a small bag. "What, Lily?" Her eyes narrowed, scanning me suspiciously. "You sound different. Are you okay?" I smiled nervously, fidgeting with her sleeves. "Act natural. Don't move too much." "Yeah, just tired. Had a rough night." Her brow furrowed. Okay. Breakfast." I nodded, trying to steady myself. Every movement felt exaggerated in her smaller body, the sway of my hips, the flutter of my fingers, the way I balanced on feet that were smaller and lighter than mine. Isabella's eyes flicked repeatedly between me and Lily in my body, and I realized with a jolt that she was suspicious. As Isabella began unpacking the food, Lily whispered in my ear, her voice a perfect imitation of my tone. "We have to fix this before she notices more. She's sharp. She'll figure it out if we mess up." I nodded, heart hammering. Each interaction with Isabella became a careful dance. I felt my internal conflict rising. Fear, guilt, and an undeniable, forbidden thrill all collided. Being in Lily's body, I experienced the world differently. The softness of the clothes, the subtle sway of movement, even the delicate way objects felt in my hands. I realized how much I had yearned for this in secret, how much I had imagined it, but now it was real. After breakfast, Isabella left briefly to take a phone call, and Lily whispered, "Quick. We need to try the reversal formula again." We retreated to the bedroom, a flurry of panic and excitement. The potion's effects had settled into a strange equilibrium, but we needed the reversal. I could feel her, or rather my body responding to her hands as we prepared the mixture. Pouring the chemicals, stirring, and inhaling the faint, metallic scent of the potion triggered a surreal mix of anxiety and exhilaration. "You ready?" Lily asked, holding the vial with my hands, her face serious in my body. I nodded, feeling a shiver. "Ready or not, here goes." We drank the experimental mixture simultaneously. A warmth spread through me again, and the world blurred, twisting in dizzying ways. But instead of returning to our original bodies, the potion's effects deepened. I felt different. My chest tightened, curves pronounced further, and a strange energy surged through me. I wasn't just Lily anymore. I was more Lily than her, in some inexplicable, almost magical way. I staggered to the mirror, heart racing. My reflection looked familiar, yet alien. Every contour, Every detail of Lily's form had been amplified: the softness of her features, the curve of her waist, the delicate arch of her hands. A blush crept across my cheeks, though technically not mine. I touched the mirror with small, trembling fingers, marveling at the transformation and feeling an almost overwhelming rush of self-awareness. I can't believe this," I whispered, my voice high and airy. "It feels incredible." Lily, observing in my body, frowned. "Incredible? Are you kidding me? We need to reverse this, not admire it." But I couldn't stop. The sensation of inhabiting her body, of moving differently, of feeling vulnerable and exposed yet empowered, was intoxicating. Even the soft sway of her skirt, the delicate pressure of socks on her feet, and the subtle bounce of her hair as I walked made me acutely aware of every movement. My heart pounded in ways it never had before, not from fear alone, but from a deep, secret thrill I couldn't name. We continued experimenting with the formulas, each attempt making subtle changes. Sometimes my body would flicker, hands elongating, hips narrowing, voice pitching higher, and then stabilize again. Each flicker brought a wave of panic and excitement. I realized that my internal struggle was no longer just about fear of discovery. It was about desire, curiosity, and an irresistible pull toward this new identity, however temporary. Hours passed, and Isabella's sporadic returns made each moment tense. The threat of exposure kept us alert. I had to navigate not only Lily's body but also her personality. Mimicking her gestures, her speech, even her emotions became essential. And yet, the more I mimicked, the more I felt the thrill of inhabiting her form. The thrill of secrecy, the exhilaration of experiencing the world differently, the intoxicating vulnerability. At one point, I caught myself adjusting a dress, smoothing the fabric over curves that weren't mine by birth. The act was simple, yet charged with emotion, fear, excitement, and a strange sense of empowerment intertwined. A small slip of the hem or a misplaced movement could reveal everything to Isabella. Each glance in the mirror was a reminder of how precarious our situation was, and how vividly alive this form made me feel. As night fell, the suspense intensified. We were running out of options, the potion's effects unpredictable, and Isabella unknowingly circling closer to discovery. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the rustle of the wind against the window, the click of keys on her laptop, felt magnified, like the universe itself was conspiring to expose us. And yet, amidst the panic, I realized something startling. I was no longer just afraid. I was exhilarated. The danger, the secrecy, the thrill of inhabiting a form I had secretly desired for years. It was addictive. I wanted to stop, I told myself. I had to stop. But part of me, the part that had always longed for this experience, wanted more. The night ended with us exhausted, collapsing into beds that weren't quite ours. My reflection in Lily's mirror, partially obscured by the dim light, seemed almost to wink at me, a haunting reminder that this experience was far from over. I drifted into a restless sleep, heart still racing, mind buzzing with fear, excitement, and anticipation of the chaos the next day would surely bring. The morning light spilled into the apartment like a warning. I woke with a jolt, still in Lily's body, heart hammering against my chest. My mind was a chaotic storm of fear, excitement, and anticipation. The potion hadn't reversed overnight. If anything, it had settled more firmly, making me painfully aware of every curve, every sway, every delicate motion that reminded me I was no longer myself. Lily, in my body, had already been awake for hours. I could hear her clumsily moving around in my clothes, fumbling with my phone, trying to figure out the next step in our frantic plan. She looked strange, yet convincingly like me. But her nervous energy, her small, uncertain movements, betrayed the fact that she wasn't really me. And then came the sound that made my stomach drop, the familiar click of Isabella's keys in the lock. My pulse spiked. She wasn't supposed to be back for another hour. She wasn't supposed to know. And yet, here she was, unlocking the door with that perceptive gaze that had always unnerved me. "Ethan," she called softly, stepping into the apartment. Her eyes swept across the room, lingering just a second too long. My breath caught. I froze, trying to act naturally in Lily's body. Every movement felt like a test. One wrong step, one slip of the hand, and it would all be exposed. Lily, in my body, tried to sound casual. Hey, ISA. Morning. But her tone was too deep, too awkward. Isabella's brow furrowed slightly. You sound different. Are you okay? Panic surged through me. My mind raced. Think fast. Act like her. Don't let her see. I moved subtly, trying to mimic Lily's small gestures. I adjusted her sleeves, twirled my fingers nervously, and avoided eye contact. Isabella's eyes narrowed, and I could feel the tension crackling in the room. She set down her bag, glancing between me and Lily. Something's off. I can't tell if it's just me, but are you both acting weird? My heart pounded. I swallowed, high-pitched voice trembling. No. We're fine. Just tired, I guess. Her eyes searched mine, suspicion growing. I realized with a jolt that my performance had to be flawless. Any hesitation, any unnatural movement, could give us away. And worse. The thrill of being caught, the adrenaline, made my body respond in ways I hadn't expected. The curves, the delicate movements, the soft sway, they were all accentuated, making me feel exposed, vulnerable, yet uncomfortably exhilarated. The morning passed in a tense blur. Isabella hovered nearby, asking questions, making comments that made my palms sweat. You've been acting differently lately. More delicate. Her tone wasn't accusatory, but it was sharp. I could feel the fear rising, mixing with a strange, guilty excitement. She's noticing. She's noticing everything. Then came the first real twist. Lily, in my body, accidentally knocked over a vase while reaching for a book. It tumbled to the floor, shattering with a deafening crash. Isabella gasped. What was that? I froze, heart in my throat. Lily, flustered, tried to bend down quickly to pick up the pieces, but in my body, her movements were too heavy, too awkward. The vase slipped from her hands entirely, smashing into more fragments. Isabella's eyes widened, suspicion flaring. What is going on? Are you okay? I felt my pulse spike, every instinct screaming to escape, to hide, to reveal nothing. The fear was overwhelming, but so was the thrill. The danger, the secrecy, the sheer intensity of the moment. It made me hyper-aware of every sensation in Lily's body. My chest tightened, my hands shook, and a small involuntary shiver ran down my spine. I was acutely, almost painfully, aware of the transformation, of the form I inhabited, and of the risk of exposure. The next hours were a tense dance. Isabella stayed in the apartment, moving between rooms, her curiosity sharp, her intuition almost preternatural. We tried to act naturally, to keep up appearances, but the potion's effects were unpredictable. At one moment, my voice would pitch slightly higher, my gestures more feminine. At another, Lily's reflexes in my body would falter, betraying us both. Then came the symbolic moment, the one that would define the day. I was in Lily's bedroom, adjusting her dress in the mirror, when I felt the hem slip slightly, revealing the delicate shape of my hips, the curves I'd never possessed. My heart raced, and a surge of panic collided with an undeniable thrill. If Isabella sees this, I thought, breath catching in my throat. A knock on the door made me jump. My pulse thundered. Isabella's voice called softly, "Are you okay in there?" I froze. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me, a stranger and yet intimately familiar. I realized how deeply I had become entangled in this new form, how much the transformation affected not just my body but my emotions. I was living a dual life, and the line between fear and desire blurred dangerously. "I'm fine," I called, voice high and trembling. I tried to smooth the dress quickly, my hands shaking. Every second felt like an eternity. The suspense was unbearable. Isabella entered anyway. Her eyes widened slightly, scanning the room, taking in the scene. The dress, the mirror, the subtle sway of movement. My heart stopped. She's noticing. She's going to figure it out. But then she paused, a small smile tugging at her lips. You look different today," she said softly, almost teasingly. Her gaze lingered, and I felt the intensity of the moment crush me. I wanted to confess, to scream, to reverse the potion, but the thrill, the suspense, the sheer tension was intoxicating. Then, as if the universe itself wanted to push me further, Lily in my body knocked over another object, a book this time. The noise was sharp, echoing through the apartment. Isabella's eyes darted sharply toward us, suspicion flaring again. The room felt like it was closing in. My mind raced, my emotions surged, and every sense was heightened. I felt the delicate balance between secrecy and exposure, excitement and terror, shifting rapidly. My reflection in the mirror caught my eye once more, and I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. I was no longer just playing a role. I was inhabiting a form, a life, a persona that challenged every instinct, every desire, every fear I had. And then the final twist hit. A notification on Isabella's phone, an urgent message. She glanced at it, eyes narrowing, and I knew immediately, something had changed. The suspense was unbearable. Every instinct screamed that the moment of revelation was imminent. I backed away from the mirror, heart hammering, hands trembling, feeling more vulnerable, more exposed, and yet more alive than ever. The apartment felt charged with energy, fear, and unspoken truths. The potion had not only swapped our bodies, it had swapped our realities, our perspectives, and forced me into a world of tension, thrill, and uncharted emotional territory. And just as Isabella stepped closer, eyes sharp and curious, a sudden noise from the hallway, a neighbor returning unexpectedly, made my heart leap. My pulse raced, my mind screamed, and I realized in that moment, there was no escape. The suspense had reached its peak, the stakes higher than ever, and the consequences of exposure looming like a storm ready to break. I was trapped. In Lily's body. Under Isabella's gaze. Surrounded by uncertainty. Every second stretched into eternity. And I knew with terrifying clarity that the rest of this day would decide everything. My secret, my desires, and the precarious balance between fear and exhilaration. The apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city outside. I stood frozen in Lily's bedroom, every nerve on edge, heart pounding in a frantic rhythm that seemed to echo off the walls. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror, soft features, delicate frame, long hair falling past my shoulders. And yet, the mind behind those eyes was mine. Mine, trapped in this body, teetering between fear and the strange, undeniable thrill of inhabiting her form. Isabella's voice drifted from the living room. "Are you guys coming out soon?" Her tone was casual, but I could feel the sharpness behind it, the suspicion that had been building all morning. Every movement I made felt magnified, every gesture under a microscope. One wrong step, one slip of the dress, one tremor in my high-pitched voice, and everything would unravel. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself, but the room seemed to shrink. Panic and exhilaration collided, a storm in my chest. I could hear Lily, my sister, in my body, moving around, fumbling with my belongings. Every sound, every creak of the floor, reminded me how precarious our situation had become. And then I heard it, the soft click of the front door opening. My heart stopped. Isabella. She was back. Early. I froze in place, staring at the mirror, feeling the weight of her gaze before even seeing her. The world seemed to hold its breath. I could hear her steps drawing closer, slow and deliberate, almost as if she knew, somehow knew, that something was off. "Ethan." Her voice was gentle, but sharp, probing. "Are you okay?" I swallowed again, fingers trembling as I reached for the edge of the dresser to steady myself. My voice, high and quivering, called out, "I am fine. Just fixing some stuff." The seconds stretched into eternity. Each step she took toward the bedroom felt like a countdown, each breath a warning. My mind raced through possibilities. Should I try to explain? Should I hide? Should I attempt the reversal formula again? But even as I considered these options, the thrill of the suspense, of being caught, of teetering on the edge between discovery and secrecy, made my pulse race faster than ever. Isabella's shadow fell across the doorway. Her eyes swept over the room, lingering on the mirror, on the scattered notes, on me, on Lily's body with my mind trapped inside. She frowned slightly, her gaze sharp and piercing. "Something's different," she murmured. "I can feel it. I don't know how to explain it, but you're not the same." I felt my chest tighten. Panic surged, mingling with a strange exhilaration. She suspects. She's onto something. Every instinct screamed to act normal, to hide, to pretend. But the truth was electric beneath my skin. The dangerous, forbidden truth that I was living as Lily, that my desires and fears had collided in ways I'd never imagined. A sudden knock echoed through the apartment. My blood ran cold. Another visitor? A neighbor? Was this the moment everything would be exposed? I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. Lily in my body whispered frantically, "Ethan, what do we do? She's going to notice. She's going to." Before she could finish, Isabella stepped fully into the room, eyes narrowing. I don't understand. Something is happening here." Her gaze flicked to me, then to the mirror, and back again. The tension in the room was suffocating, electric. I could feel my hands shaking, delicate fingers curling nervously. The dress slipped slightly at the hem, the faintest hint of my unfamiliar curves visible. My reflection stared back at me, and for a split second, I couldn't distinguish between Lily and myself. Panic, guilt, and thrill surged together in a terrifying mix. And then, the sound of footsteps from the hallway. Slow, deliberate, heavy. My eyes widened. Isabella froze. Lily's body, my mind trapped inside it, stiffened. The door handle rattled as the unknown visitor tried the knob. I realized in that instant that we were completely exposed. Any second now, everything could unravel. Our secret, the potion, the swap, it could all be discovered. Isabella might finally see the truth. Or worse, someone else might. I backed toward the mirror, my pulse thundering, my mind spinning. The potion's effects had created a reality I could no longer control. I was trapped in Lily's body, navigating her world, my secret desires intertwined with fear and excitement. The suspense, the thrill, and the danger had reached their absolute peak. And just as the handle clicked, the screen cuts to black.